So the Brooklyn Nets just played their last game before the All-Star break. They just snapped the Raptors' 15-game winning streak, which is just awesome. I feel great right now. It's like the best Nets moment in a long time, I feel like. I mean, they've had some pretty awesome wins lately. The Dinwiddie game winner, the overtime win at Detroit, but still, this win to break that streak, which should have been broke 2 games ago. I'm not going to bring up the refs in that game in Toronto, but still, the fact that the Nets broke that streak is awesome. Very happy about that right now. And we'll talk about the Nets' first half of the year. I mean, I made a video about them like 2 or 3 weeks ago, but of course things have changed. The Nets have been a lot better the last 2 weeks, honestly. So they've been 7-3 since January 25th, which was the overtime win at Detroit. They won 4 of their last 5. It could have been 5 out of 5 if they beat Toronto, obviously, which is a game like I don't even want to think about. I mean, Joe Harris was this close to winning that game for them on the putback layup, and I honestly was not a fan of the final shot in that game, but it's behind us now, so I'll let it be. But on to some positive stuff. So Karras Levert might be back. I mean, last year started off great, had the injury, had to work his way back, and really wasn't himself until the playoffs. He was like the only guy in the Sixers series in the playoffs last year that was actually consistently good. So if we can find that Karras again and just have that again this year, that would be great. That would be huge for the playoffs, honestly. He's a weapon off the bench. I mean, now he's starting for us, and honestly, keep him there because Karras Levert, when starting, is amazing, and Karras off the bench is just, for some reason, not good. I mean, it came out of nowhere. It was like Kenny Atkinson one random night just said, yeah, Karras Levert's going to start, and I'm kind of like, okay. Like, he's been struggling a lot lately, but then he gets thrown in the starting lineup, and all of a sudden, like, the old Karras Levert returns. So I don't know what it is about the starting lineup and whatnot, but keep it going. I mean, I'm very happy about it, but it will be a little weird when Kyrie Irving comes back because the Kyrie and Dinwiddie duo seemed to work in, the 5-game stretch when Kyrie was back for that one point, but Karras Levert, I feel like can't go to the bench either, but Joe Harris can't go to the bench either, so like who's the odd man out here? Like, do you put Dinwiddie back on the bench or do you kind of play with fire and try to put Levert back on the bench, but then he might return to his old ways? I mean, I really don't know. So we'll see how Kenny Atkinson plays that. It's a very interesting question. Once Kyrie Irving hopefully returns, and that's the next thing on my list actually is the Kyrie injury. So first off, I want to say thank God it was only a knee sprain. It looked pretty bad at first, and I was thinking ACL. I was actually having flashbacks to like the Jeremy Lin moment against the Pacers, the first game of the year, when he looked at the camera and was like, "Oh, I'm done," and it was like a very bad moment for Nets fans, obviously, and it sucked for Jeremy Lin, so I hated seeing that. But that was what I thought of, honestly. I mean, the ref asked Kyrie, "Is he okay?" He kind of shook his head no, and then he was down for a while, stayed in for the jump ball, didn't do the jump ball, walked right to the locker room. But then we got news an hour later that his ACL was intact and whatnot, so it wouldn't have been a serious injury. He's probably going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks maybe. I hope he's back after the All-Star break, but hopefully, I just want him to be healthy. I mean, the Nets can win right now without him. I just want him to be healthy. I want him back for the playoffs, obviously. He needs to redeem himself because last year's playoffs for Kyrie were not that good, so hopefully he redeems himself. I honestly hope we play the Boston Celtics. That would be amazing, and somehow upset them and beat them, but I'll get into the playoff stuff later. So, Kevin Durant, this is a big one as well. So, if you're on the social medias, you've seen Kevin Durant running around and doing cuts and just a lot of basketball activities. He was throwing a football a couple weeks ago. So he's doing a lot of stuff where it's he looks normal. He looks good. I mean, obviously it's different from playing an actual NBA game, but his range of motion and stuff like that, I'm no Achilles expert, not a doctor, but he looks good right now. So I would say he's honestly somewhat close to returning. I mean, I feel like it'll come out of nowhere. We'll probably get a tweet out of nowhere saying Kevin Durant will be in the lineup tomorrow night or something like that, and that'll be an amazing moment. But I feel like it could be soon. I mean, maybe a month away. I mean, what is it now? It's February 12th. I mean, we have March, we have April, so I think somewhere mid-March maybe he comes back. I'm not trying to obviously I'm just speculating right now, but Kevin Durant's going to take this at his own pace. I feel like he really wants to play. The guy's a basketball junkie. I'm sure he misses it. I'm sure he hates sitting on the bench every game and can't do anything about it, so I'm sure he wants to come back, but they're also being smart about it, which is great. So I think Durant will play when he feels he's ready and when it's safe. And honestly, when he's back, this team can go places, believe me. So I'll talk about that later, obviously. But a healthy Kevin Durant, healthy Kyrie Irving, and all these guys they have off the bench, and even the starters with Levert, Joe Harris playing at a high level once again. Jared Allen's having a pretty good year. DeAndre Jordan's now coming around. So this team is just getting good at the right time, and we'll get into that actually right after this. So one guy I have to mention is Garrett Temple. He's been phenomenal, a guy who's been around for like 10 years now, bounced around from team to team like an actual journeyman in the NBA. He's came here, he's just been absolutely phenomenal in the Kenny Atkinson system. I mean, he's been a guy who I love watching. He's great. I mean, he's making most of his shots from three, good percentages. I don't have them off the top of my head, but it seems like he's making all of his open shots. And honestly, I think in my preseason video, I said if there's one guy on this team that's going to piss me off, it's going to be Garrett Temple, but he's been the complete opposite. So I was dead wrong about that. Garrett Temple has been great so far. I love him. So keep doing what you're doing, Garrett Temple. Hopefully he finishes the year strong. He'll be big in the playoffs as well with his veteran leadership and whatnot, because there's still a lot of young guys on this team. Also, DeAndre Jordan, speaking of veteran leadership. So DeAndre Jordan, like the first probably like 30, 40 games of the year maybe, wasn't all that good in my mind. He was average. I think he was playing a little bit underneath what he could have been doing. But since returning from that dislocated finger injury, he's been a lot better. I don't know what really got into him or whatever, but he's been a lot better. He's definitely developed chemistry with Spencer Dinwiddie on the lobs. The first few games of the year, Dinwiddie and DeAndre had no chemistry whatsoever on the lobs. I mean, Dinwiddie was just throwing balls off the backboard. It was kind of crazy. Sometimes that happens now, but it's not as frequent. So DeAndre Jordan's been much better. He's finishing games now. He's on the floor. Jared Allen's usually on the bench now to close out games, which is fine because DeAndre Jordan, I mean, he is the bigger presence in the paint. I know Jared Allen's probably a better shot blocker, but still, going one-on-one against, bigger centers and guys that are just more thick, I don't know how else to say it, but guys that are more thick, like the Joel Embiid type, and even the other night playing Sabonis on the Pacers. I mean, I think DeAndre Jordan did a good job against him. Of course, gave up that basket at the end to put the Pacers up, but still, he was a big reason for that comeback in Indiana. So DeAndre Jordan's been a lot better, and hopefully he keeps it up, and I think once the playoffs start, he'll be a big piece to this team. What else we have? Joe Harris, I mentioned before, starting to come around once again. Seems like he's shooting the ball really well. He'll be in the three-point contest once again, so I'll be repping my Joe Harris three-point champion shirt on that day. I'll be rooting for him once again. That's going to be fun to watch. Wilson Chandler and Rodion Kurucs. So those guys have kind of just went back and forth. I mean, of course, Wilson Chandler was suspended the first 25 games, I believe. It took him a little bit to get his feet underneath him, and honestly has struggled so far, but he's been all right on defense. I think he he plays over Kurucs because he is a better defender. I think Kurucs obviously brings more energy, but in terms of playing better defense, I think Wilson Chandler is better right now. He's probably like 20, 25 pounds heavier than Kurucs anyway, so he's able to play that 4 spot better than Kurucs does and is not really a disadvantage on the defensive end. So that helps him stay in the rotation, but Wilson Chandler definitely has to hit his shots more. I mean, he had that big shot tonight, hit that 3 in the corner, but a couple possessions before that had that play where he was open for a shot. The shot clock was at like 2 or 1, and then he just drives in and gets a shot clock violation. So it was stuff like that. You don't expect that to happen from a veteran, and there's been times this year where Wilson Chandler's definitely annoyed me, but he could be a big piece in the playoffs, honestly. We don't know. I mean, if Wilson Chandler could have one of those games where he shoots like 5 of 7 from downtown and has a big game for the Nets. You never know. This could happen, and he's been pretty good on defense as well, so I can't complain too much about Wilson Chandler. I was expecting a little bit more, though. So, Torian Prince, he's another guy who first, probably 30 games or so was just pretty bad. It was underwhelming from him, but honestly, I forget what game it was. It might have been one against the Knicks. Forget what it was. He had a really good game at some point. Had like 25 points. Was efficient shooting. I forget which game it was, but he really broke out. And since that game has been really good. I mean, he's had some down games. The game in Washington that they lost kind of recently, like probably 2 weeks ago, the game where Kyrie got hurt, Prince was awful. I mean, it was one of the worst games I've watched from a basketball player. Torian Prince was really bad defensively, shooting. I think he was like 0 of 8 from downtown. But outside of that one game, Torian Prince has been really good recently. So hopefully he keeps that up. He looks more comfortable in this offense. defense and whatnot, so I hope he keeps that up. He's a big piece in the playoffs as well. If he can really be like that fourth or fifth option that could put up maybe 20 points for you here and there and play solid defense. I know Prince definitely struggles on defense. I went over that in my, mid-season review for the Nets and like what's going on with this team. I think I labeled the video "What's Wrong with the Brooklyn Nets," and I went over some game film against the Lakers, the game at Barclays Center like 3 weeks ago. And Torian Prince had some issues on defense for sure, not boxing out, not rotating the right way, leaving guys open. So yeah, Torian Prince has been a culprit for bad defense this year, but as long as he's hitting his shots and playing average defense, I'm fine with him. I don't have a problem there. And Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot is the last guy I want to talk about. He's honestly, since signing his 2-year extension, which was like a week and a half ago, for some reason, he's been a lot better. His shooting has been better. He wasn't that good tonight, but outside of this Raptors game where they beat them, he's been fine. He's been hitting his shots. He's been, creating off the dribble, playing good defense for the most part. So he's a guy who has a lot of length. I mean, he's definitely a guy who can create his own shot. He's more of a catch and shooter, though, in this type of offense, but he's lanky, can play good defense, has the potential to play good defense. He's not really a great defender, but has the potential based off his body. And if he's hitting his shots, he'll be in this rotation. He's probably the last guy in this rotation right now, but if he's hitting his shots, he'll be in it. I mean, he might be out when Kyrie Irving returns, especially when Kevin Durant returns, so that's one thing. But still, for right now, Cabarrot is playing really well, and I like seeing that. I'm happy for him, a good story. And now on to the playoffs. So the Nets would probably play, I think right now, if the season ended, they would play Toronto. So it's either them, Boston, or Miami. So I think the most likely, I think right now that's the order. It's Toronto, Boston, Miami. They're all kind of close right now, like within 5 games of each other, so you don't know who it's going to be. But look, I said this last video, and I might be crazy for saying it, but I think a healthy Nets squad can compete with any of them. I'm not saying they're going to beat them. I don't think Toronto's a much better coach team. That's nothing against Kenny Atkinson, but for some reason, Nick Nurse just, I don't know. I mean, for some reason, Toronto is just really good. They just play really well together. Everything is fluent, and yeah, I mean, Toronto seems like that team that shouldn't be that good, but then you play them, and you're like, yeah, that team's really good for some reason. So I don't know what it is there. Boston has some talent. Jason Tatum got better. Jaylen Brown got a lot better. Of course, Kemba Walker's there. Daniel Tice is pretty good as well. So they got guys there in Boston that you have to be afraid of. Marcus Smart is having a good year as well. So they have guys there. But honestly, for the whole Kyrie narrative and whatnot, I would love to play Boston and beat them. That would just be like bittersweet in my mind. But honestly, I don't care. I just want to win the first round and just go from there. I mean, honestly, I do believe Kevin Durant is coming back this year. You might not agree with me, but I think he is. And if he comes back in the middle of March and then just works his way up, goes from 5 minutes a game to 10 minutes a game to 15 to 20 to so on, and eventually works up to that 30 to 35 mark, minutes per game, then in the playoffs, hopefully, I know he'll only be around for a month at that point, but still, he should be acclimated enough and not play on back-to-backs. He should be fine to play in the playoffs and hopefully be the same Kevin Durant that we've seen for the last decade. And if he is, then the Nets can compete with anybody. If you have a healthy Kyrie Irving, a healthy Kevin Durant, and you have all these bench pieces or just, even just other guys around them, like Joe Harris and Torian Prince that shoot, and Garrett Temple as well, guys that can hit their shots. Then you have DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen as big men, and Karras Levert, Spencer Dinwiddie, guys that can create for themselves and just, play good team basketball when they need to and stuff like that. Wilson Chandler hopefully will be good in the playoffs. So they have guys on this team that can make this a really good playoff run. But of course, everyone has to be healthy. If Kyrie comes back and tweaks his knee and is done for the year, then forget about it. If Kevin Durant never comes back, then forget about it. I'm just saying, if they have a healthy roster and everyone's playing, if you have Durant healthy, Kyrie healthy, Karras healthy, Dinwiddie hopefully, and everybody, DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen, if everyone's there in the playoffs, I think they have a chance against any of those 3 teams I mentioned before. Not saying they'd win, but I think they would give Boston, Miami, or Toronto a pretty good fight, like a 6 or 7 game series, and maybe they win it. Maybe they F around and win that series. I don't know, but that would be huge. That would be awesome. They have the talent to do it, but I don't know if those guys would play together long enough to have like the chemistry to do so. The Nets roster on paper is very good, but these teams like Toronto, Miami, I know Miami made some trades at the deadline, but even Boston, they stayed put at the deadline. They've been playing with each other all year, and they know each other's styles and whatnot, so it comes easier for them. But if the Nets, in mid-March from, hopefully when Durant returns to the end of, the middle of April when the season ends, if they develop a lot of chemistry and they're playing, good team basketball, I wouldn't want to play them in the first round is all I'm saying. I'd rather play the Magic, obviously, if I was, one of those teams. So it will be interesting. I'm going to be very excited, obviously, if Kevin Durant comes back and looks healthy in the playoffs. Same with Kyrie Irving. I hope he bounces back. So, look, I think the sky's the limit. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say this team can go to the finals this year. That's definitely something I would not expect. But with this talent they have, anything can happen. You have two of the top 10 players in the league, one healthy, Kyrie and KD, and a lot of good players around them. I mean, Dinwiddie, Levert, when they're on their games, very good players. Joe Harris and Torian Prince when they're hitting their shots. Garrett Temple when he's hitting his shots. Very good players and useful players. And you have your big guys and DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen. So anything's possible. Honestly, I hope the Nets get past the first round. That's all I want. We haven't seen that since the Paul Pierce and KG year. So, I mean, that was like 2014, I think it was. So, we haven't seen that in a while. I want to see the Nets in the second round. That would be awesome. And if they do, we'll see what happens. Of course, I'll have a video probably after the regular season ends, and we'll talk about that. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Go Nets, and I'll talk to you next time.